a mute alien, a deaf human. One love that defied the galaxy. Some stories begin with explosions. This one begins with silence. A deaf human, a mute alien girl, and a bond not built on words, but on light, rhythm, and something the universe was never meant to understand. He was alone by choice. She was hunted for feeling. Together, they created a resonance impossible, forbidden, beautiful. But love like theirs doesn't stay hidden for long. Stay with us. Feel what happens when two beings defy everything written in their stars. This is the song beyond the stars. The moon was dying. Its atmosphere clung to existence like the last breath of a dream. Once, Lysera had been promised as the next Eden, water-rich, terraformable, a second Earth waiting to bloom. But the colony failed. The rivers dried up. The settlers left. All except one. Elias Roark lived alone in the ruins. A dome of scrap and salvaged metal shielded him from Lysera's bitter winds. Inside, he sculpted silence. Soundscapes. Light pulses. Water resonance. The kind of music no one else could hear, but he could feel. His studio was a labyrinth of glass strings, tuning forks, and sandfall harmonizers. They vibrated with a language he hadn't spoken aloud in years. Elias was deaf. He hadn't heard a voice since the war. And he didn't miss it. Most days passed in grayscale repetition. Wake. Work. Eat. Sculpt. Sleep. But today something changed. He felt it before he saw it. A subtle quiver in the moss field that blanketed the outer rim, bioluminescent and strangely reactive to sound. It shimmered. Fluttered. Then darkened. He stood up slowly. The vibrations weren't from weather, or ground shift, or his own instruments. They were alive. Elias stepped into his suit, locked the air valve, and crossed into the windswept outside. The moss crunched underfoot, gray by day, ghostly green by night. And at the edge of the field, crumpled near the base of a crater, he saw her. Small. Luminous. Fragile. The creature was curled into herself, body tremoring with faint pulses of blue light. Her skin semi-translucent, veined like river glass, radiated gentle flickers that pulsed like a heartbeat. She was maybe half his size. Arms tucked in. Face childlike. A slow, harmonic vibration rippled from her chest in waves. And it wasn't random. It was rhythmic. A song. Or a cry. He dropped to one knee. Didn't speak. Just reached out, slowly, palms up. She recoiled at first, then looked up at him, eyes vast, liquid, full of terror and wonder. No translator. No common tongue. But in that moment, they understood the only thing that mattered. She was afraid. And he wasn't here to hurt her. Elias carried her in both arms, wrapped in a thermal cloak, her light dimming with every step. Back at his dome, he laid her gently into a heated basin filled with low-frequency water, one of his experiments in tactile sound. The moment her body touched the surface, her skin shimmered. A soft ripple passed through the water, responding to her presence like a piano string struck in a quiet room. She wasn't just alive. She was resonating. He watched her for hours, scanning vitals with old colony medtech. Heartbeat, irregular. Core temperature, dropping. Musculature, semi-fluid. Skeletal traces, crystalline. Not human. Not even close. But her light stabilized near low tones. Elias adjusted the ambient frequency, tuning the room like an instrument. Her breathing slowed. The glow returned faint, but steady. He stayed up all night at her side. No music. No food. Just the hum of machines and the rhythmic rise and fall of her chest. And for the first time in years, Elias felt something stir beneath the surface of his stillness. Not duty. Not science. Something closer to belonging. At dawn, she awoke. Her eyes opened wide, unblinking. They locked onto his, then darted to the tuning forks, the water tank, the glowing moss pressed against the dome walls. Her body pulsed, and Elias saw her shape light into patterns. Phrases, maybe. Like a jellyfish trying to speak Morse code. He raised his hand. Pointed to himself. Then drew a name on the steamed glass. Elias. She watched. Her fingers mimicked the motion, but instead of drawing, she pulsed one long glow, then two short. The pattern repeated. Then again. Elias stared. Slowly, painstakingly, he rewired one of his old frequency panels to interpret the pattern as visual graphs. The pulses weren't random. They had syntax. She was singing a name. But peace never lasts. 3 days later, the dome's moss flickered not with life, but with silence. No vibrations. No pulse. Elias stepped outside to check the perimeter and saw the crater where he'd found her was now blackened, the moss scorched into a perfect ring. And above it, suspended in the air, something hung motionless, massive, and wrong. A shape without sound. A living machine. Or a silent god. It hovered like a judge. Watching. Waiting. Inside, the girl trembled. Her body flared into deep crimson pulses. Elias ran to her. She clutched his arm, pulses tightening. He saw her eyes go wide with panic. She touched her chest. Then his. Then the dome. A single pulse lit the room sharp. Fast. An urgent frequency, directed straight at him. He understood. They'd found her. And they'd come to erase her. And anyone who had heard her song. The reclaimer did not land. It descended. Without thrusters. Without sound. Its form was jagged, geometric like metal sculpted by absence. It cast no shadow. Reflected no stars. Where it passed, the moss dimmed and died. Elias watched from the viewport, breath shallow. He had no military training. No backup. No weapons. Just a dome full of sound, and a girl who glowed like a heartbeat wrapped in fog. She stood beside him, trembling. He didn't need words to understand. That thing wasn't here to retrieve her. It was here to erase her. And if it found her resonance in him, her music in his memory, it would erase him too. He packed quickly. Oxygen modules. Food tablets. One of his resonance rigs, the portable one. She helped, in her quiet way, mimicking his actions. When he looked back, she held up a pulse. One long. Two short. The same name. The first word she'd ever taught him. Eyu. He repeated the pulse back to her, finger tapping against his chest. She glowed softly. They didn't need a shared language anymore. They had one. Elias activated the escape route, an old colonial substructure beneath the dome, a network of tunnels that had once carried heated water and now lay dry, hollow, forgotten. But not dead. As their boots struck the metal floor, the moss along the walls flickered to life, sensitive to Eyu's pulse, reacting like old neurons remembering a dream. The walls became a canvas. Blue and violet light trailed behind her like footsteps of song. But something followed. The reclaimer didn't walk. It unfolded. Gliding through air shafts, slithering through cracks, always just out of sight, but its influence spread. When it passed, the lights froze. The moss blacked out. The song stopped. Every echo was hunted. Every sound, a target. They reached a chamber, a hollow dome deep underground, once a resonance storage tank. Elias reconnected his rig, hoping the old instruments would still function. He tuned them to her light. She understood instantly. Together, they built a frequency. Not speech. Not music. Bond. Elias closed his eyes. She placed her hands over his chest. He felt her rhythm, the grief, the fear, the wonder, the guilt of being loved. It wasn't telepathy. It was something rawer. Ancient. He felt her show him. Her kind had outlawed resonance bonds. Those who felt across species, who connected, were seen as broken. Infection. Disease. And when Eyu first resonated with a non-Ishilari mind as a child, her teacher, a human xenolinguist, her species silenced the man. Then isolated her. She ran. She hid. But the song had already begun. Now, they wanted to end it. By killing the last note. Her. Elias touched her cheek. A pulse passed through her skin, into him. Not pain. Not words. A single plea. Don't let me go quiet. The tunnels spat them out beneath Lysera's broken horizon, ridges jagged like the teeth of a sleeping god, blackened rock, and alien moss stretching toward the stars. The sun had already dipped below the crater wall, leaving behind only the glow of the bioluminescent field. Eyu's light flickered, uncertain. Her body had grown weaker. The pulses came slower now, with faint distortions at the edges like a melody played on a cracked instrument. Elias felt it in his chest. Her frequency was decaying. He checked the air tanks. Not enough to cross the ridge to the old COMM tower. He could get there, but she couldn't. Not like this. But she looked at him, and pulsed once. She trusted him. Not just to run. To protect the song. Even if it cost everything. Then the reclaimer appeared. Not like before. Not floating. Hunting. It moved across the ridgeline on limbs that bent in directions no bone should, absorbing every sound in its path. The moss turned black beneath its steps. The stars behind it vanished, as though sound itself was shielding its movement or being devoured. Elias turned. Grabbed Eyu. Ran. His boots pounded across moss that lit with every footfall, leaving a trail. A path of resonance. A map for the reclaimer to follow. They wouldn't make it. Not both of them. And he knew it. Halfway up the ridge, Elias stopped. His breath came in ragged bursts. His body wasn't built for this. But his will was. He unstrapped the resonance pack, tuned it to Eyu's base frequency, and set the receiver to record. Eyu looked up at him confused. He smiled softly, the way he used to before his brother died. Before the war. Before silence. He pressed a trembling hand to her chest, right where her glow pulsed weakest. Then to his own. Synchronize. She understood. Her light surged. Just once. A question. A refusal. A plea. But Elias shook his head. No. Then tapped her wrist. Run. He turned back toward the reclaimer, raised the resonance rig to his chest, and screamed not with sound, but with vibration. His body became a beacon. Every memory of Eyu, every harmonic pulse she'd shared, every note she'd left in him, he gave them back. He played her song. Raw. Real. Defiant. The reclaimer stopped. It had no eyes, but it felt. This frequency wasn't Eyu's. It was human. Tainted. But resonant. And in that moment of hesitation, as the thing recalibrated searching for the anomaly in the pattern, Eyu vanished into the moss light. Elias stood his ground. His limbs burned. His skin blistered from resonance feedback. His spine vibrated like a tuning fork splitting itself in half. His neural interface fried. But he smiled. He smiled because the moss around him glowed brighter than it ever had before. Not because of her, but because of them. Eyu didn't stop running until her light began to flicker, then fade, then shiver into stillness. She collapsed beneath the shelter of a collapsed colony outpost, somewhere beyond the ridge. The reclaimer's presence had vanished from the horizon. The stars above blinked silently, as if unsure how to mourn what had just occurred. But she knew. He was gone. Not taken. Not erased. Given. When she awoke, the resonance pack lay beside her. Slightly scorched, still functional. Its interface pulsed faintly, tuned to the frequency she and Elias had built together. Inside it, stored like a preserved echo, was his final vibration. She touched the panel. And he sang. Not in words. In memory. The sound of moss crackling underfoot. The warmth of his arms. The first time he smiled. The silent ache when she glowed with fear. His heartbeat, when it synced with hers. The final note played low, soft, breaking. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a promise. You still exist. And so do I. In you. Eyu curled around the device, and for the first time since fleeing her world, she let herself glow, not for fear, or pain, or signal, but for love. Years passed. Lysera was left alone again. No signals came. No ships. The reclaimer never returned. But beneath the ridge, in the ruins of a forgotten moon, a faint hum continued. A glow within the moss. A steady, pulsing rhythm. And in the center of it all, Eyu. Older now. Taller. But still gentle. Her light constant. She wandered the valley, humming without sound. Her body pulsed with Elias's frequency, woven into her own. She spoke to no one. But wherever she walked, the moss responded. As if listening. As if remembering. Then, one day, a ship landed. Small. Civilian. Unarmed. A research crew from a neutral trade system, scanning for new energy sources. They found Lysera overgrown, glowing with impossible patterns. No one lived there, at least, no one they could detect. But on the last night of their expedition, one of them in turn heard something. Not with his ears. With his chest. A pressure. A vibration. Like someone breathing inside his bones. He walked toward the moss field, drawn. And there, in the center, he saw her. A girl made of glass and starlight. Watching. Waiting. She didn't speak. But the hum beneath her skin matched the beat of his heart. And when he reached out, she pulsed back. Lysera never became the new Earth. It never built cities, or colonies, or conquest. Instead, it became something rarer. A resonance vault. A frequency haven. A place that remembers, in silence, what the universe once tried to erase. That connection is not a weakness. It's the most dangerous thing we can do. And the most powerful. Eyu still walks its ridges. Sometimes she hums. And sometimes, the moss hums back. No one knows her name. No monument marks where Elias fell. But his frequency is still there. Carried in every step she takes. Woven into the roots. Playing softly in the glow. What you just experienced wasn't a rescue. It was a rhythm. One life reaching for another and finding meaning in the quiet between heartbeats. Elias may be gone. But his song lives on. Not just in her. But maybe now, in you. If this story moved you, if it made you think, or feel, or remember someone, tell us in the comments. Because stories like this aren't just told. They are shared. And sometimes, that's how a song survives, echoing from one heart to the next. Thank you for listening. And for feeling.